Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. Tonight we are talking about a couple of very enjoyable subjects. First being Mohammed Hijab and his terrible defeat in the High Court recently, with his defamation case towards Douglas Murray and the Spectator. After that, we are going to be looking into Yasir Qadhi, who continues to double down on the fiasco that is the hadith in Western academia. With me, as usual, is my excellent co-pilot, Mr. Stop Spamming. Welcome, sir.
Hello, 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 hello. Hi, everybody.
Brilliant. And thank you to you, and thank you to Rob for covering me last week. I wasn't very well, and Stops and Rob sailed the ship excellently. It was like the old days. It was really lovely listening to you guys do it for the first time in years. So I enjoyed that, and thank you very much for covering me while I wasn't well. But I am really up for it tonight. And we are going to start with the Mohammed Hijab court case. Now, I'm sure a lot of people will have been watching this with some enjoyment earlier this week. The background for anyone that doesn't know, in 2022, so 3 years ago now, there was some upset in Leicester, which is a city in the East Midlands in England here, and there was some tensions between Hindus and Muslims. I think there was a cricket match that was going on, and there was a bit of a kind of fight between different groups of young men. Now, Mohammed Hijab decided to run up there and pour fuel on the fire, essentially, and try to incite further trouble. And various media outlets wrote articles pointing this out. One of them was a Spectator magazine, and the article was written by Douglas Murray, who basically painted a very accurate picture of what he was doing there. Now, in response, Mohammed Hijab went on a spree of suing people. And I say a spree because the Spectator was not the only one he threatened to sue. He also threatened to sue another media publication called The Telegraph here in the UK. And I have no idea what happened with that court case. But the Spectator won against Douglas Murray. The result was in this week, and it was a humiliating and resounding defeat for Mohammed Hijab.
Surprise, surprise.
I'm gonna have a quick look. What we're gonna do, we're gonna have a quick look at a couple of key paragraphs from the Spectator article about this. What I am going to do on my own channel tomorrow, I'm going to have a more detailed review where I go through some of the juicy bits in the court document because they're really, really fucking funny. And it's just basically Mohammed Hijab has just had to eat humble pie, and we all love it. I mean, I don't know what is going on with Mohammed Hijab. It's like, he's got the girlfriends in the hotel, the extra wives and stuff. He's got these court failures. He's all over the place, so it's quite funny just to watch him. I don't know. He's collapsing all over the shop, but. Yeah, so we're going to have a look at that in a second, and then afterwards we're going to go into Yasir Qadhi. Now, Yasir Qadhi was last week. Rob and Stocks went into some detail about Yasir Qadhi, who's basically had to admit that Western academia have not, applying the Western academic critical historical method means that the hadith really don't survive as reliable documents, and Yasir Qadhi has had to admit that while also trying to kind of save face in terms of saying, "Oh no, you can still be a pious Muslim and all this kind of stuff." Now he's kind of doubled down on this contradictory position in a new video where he's trying to do damage control on this issue, because once again, Yasir Qadhi is wrecking things. So the rest of the episode is going to be a bit of a follow up to the Yasir Qadhi situation. We're going to have a look at a video, him trying to dig his way out of this hole, which Stops and Rob showed last week. So that is the agenda for tonight. Hello to everyone in the comments. Hi, Smile. Hi, April. Hi, Dude. Anyone else who's there, who's listening. I hope you enjoyed tonight, because this will be a bit of fun. And we're going to start now with the Spectator. So let me just get the article further down so we can read some of this. Right, so there's Happy Hijab in the picture there, and Smiling Douglas Murray. Now, as I say, what the first thing I found interesting was I didn't actually realise that his real name is Hijab, Hegab. That's his official name on the court document. So why he changed his last name in social media to a piece of women's Islamic clothing, I really don't understand. But anyway,
Hang on, it's not clothing. It's just a separator.
a separate. Well, yeah, I suppose, yeah, in terms of the Quranic language, but I mean, it's come to be used as a term for particular clothing.
Yeah, in colloquial terms, yeah.
Yeah, it just seems a very strange thing to put on your YouTube profile. Anyway, so I just want to look at a couple of choice paragraphs here. So basically, yeah, as I was saying at the start, it was the Leicester riots. He went down there, was stirring up shit. Douglas Murray wrote an article about it in the Spectator, accurately describing that, and he sued him for defamation. Now he's lost that case, and I just want to have a look at a particular couple of paragraphs where the judge was describing hijab. So this is the High Court judge in the case who has dismissed the case, said they found him as a witness, talking about Mohammed Hijab. He was combative and constantly argumentative, arguing his case rather than giving straightforward responses. He made an untenable denial of vigilantism over his actions in Leicester. He made claims that were not credible when he was unaware of having given a speech in front of a van displaying images of the Holocaust on another occasion in Golders Green. Yeah, just to let you know, this was also in relation to a previous bit of street thuggery that he was involved with when he was essentially trying to intimidate the local Jewish community in Golders Green, which is an area in London. And he was also he was called out for that as well by the Spectator and other media outlets. And he tried to act as if, oh no, I wasn't going down to incite any trouble against Jewish people, and he just found that claim was bullshit as well. Where's the other bit though? There's a particular paragraph. Sorry, you have to bear with me. I'm doing this. I was a little bit unprepared. Where was it? I was talking particularly about his behaviour. Here we are. No, hang on. Sorry, bear with me, folks. Yeah, I think it was that one. Yeah. Mohammed Hijab was a picture of arrogance in courtroom 73 at the Royal Courts of Justice. Over the 3 days he gave evidence last month, Hijab, whose real name is Mohammed Hijab, smirked, laughed, and slouched in his chair. He hectored the Spectator's legal counsel, Greg Callis. At the end of his second day in the witness box, Hijab leaned over the side and shouted, "You are good. You are not bad. You're a good lawyer. However, even for someone like yourself, with as much intelligence, as much shrewdness and good questioning, even someone like yourself, you're finding this difficult. It's an unsalvageable case." Sorry, I'm trying to do the dramatic job now. Greg, it really is. Now, the reason that I find these interesting, these paragraphs, is because Mohammed Hijab has always described himself as an actor. And I know you know that, Stocks, because I think he said it once to you when you went on a live stream challenging him. And he is very much this dramatic persona that looks for attention and that looks for, to sort of basically just put himself at the center of everything. And I almost feel that he's done this court case just so he can be the center of attention, because I wonder if he really thought he could actually win this. Because one of the things that it said in the court case was basically, you're condemned by your own video. The Spectator article is quite a mild description of what you are, and your own video shows how much of a thug you are and a street agitator. So why he wanted to do this court, unless it was just like, I want to be seen as the bad man in the court fighting the Islamophobic system or whatever. I have no idea, but I feel that's a part of it. But the way
he's a showman.
But he is. But they're describing him doing the exact same things he would do if he was down at Speaker's Corner doing a Dawah session.
Exactly.
And I think if you're actually going to a court and you think that's going to work, then you really are a prized idiot, as far as I'm concerned. And to me, I really hope he gets he has to pay the court fees of the other side, and he takes it, maybe a couple hundred thousand hit, because the Spectator probably would have hired quite an expensive legal team. So if he ends up having to pay their bills, it will be quite funny, because it'd be a really expensive stunt. But as I say, there's loads of funny details in this, which I'll go into more detail on my own channel. Should have that video up tomorrow. And I'll put a link in the description if you're not listening to this live. It should be done by then, by tomorrow. And it goes into all sorts of things, because he was trying to make massive financial claims that he'd lost all this income from charities that he had basically was friends with the people, and I think Ali Darwell was running one of the charities which he claims to have lost income from because of this defamation against his character. And it was all seen as lies, basically, in the court. So I'm going to go through that, because there's some really funny stuff in there. But we can officially now, Mohammed Hijab is officially, by the UK legal system, a liar. So anyone who ever makes a video about him, anyone who ever talks to him face to face or online, it should start with, court confirmed liar. That is what Mohammed Hijab's named. That should be his title now before anyone actually addresses him. And there's nothing he can do about it. He can't say it's defamed because the High Court judge has done it. And It's just amazing. I just absolutely, I just fucking love this.
Talking about shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, how? I mean, when you post online videos of yourself inciting a mob and then go to
And you go
court,
to court.
saying you're defaming me for saying that I'm inciting a mob, and the judge just turns around and says,
Oh,
"No,
goodness.
your own
You
video
can't
condemns
make
you."
this up.
He's such an idiot, and all the lies about the finances and these dodgy witnesses he's brought in. There's, as I say, there's loads of juicy bits. I'm going to go into the court documents because they're funny, but that'll be on my other channel. But I just want to give a little a little taster of it here on the Gin and Tonic show, and I hope people enjoy that because it's just funny to watch Mohammed Hijab and his antics. I mean, it's like he's trying to destroy his own whatever's left of his credibility. And I'm loving it. I'm just saying, and I hope, as I say, there was at least one other legal case around this with the Telegraph. I hope this is still on the cards. I don't know what's happening with that, but I really hope that we see more of this. I want to see another court case with him doing this crap and losing again. It will be brilliant.
So what do you say about this? And his God is watching.
Yeah, well, but this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, lying is supposed to be a sin in Islam, and he's got, not only has he lied in front of the court, he's, from what I can tell with the court document, he's deliberately submitted false evidence as well. And I say I'll go into that more detail of that later in another video.
But he's
But
damaging Islam. You see, this is the whole point that I'm trying to make. He's damaging the ummah. He's damaging the reputation. He's damaging any morality or any moral standards within Islam, and his God is just letting him do that.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I just think it's brilliant though. So yeah, that's basically the situation with Mr. Hijab. April puts pusillanimous. Yes, pusillanimous. He loves that. What's your crocodilian? Yeah, I mean, he loves his big words. That really
Uh,
don't have anything to do with what he's talking about.
I can just picture him in court when he starts shouting in there. I mean,
Yeah, well, apparently
he's
he was,
such a dumb doer.
he was arguing with the judge, and he wasn't answering the questions of the prosecution. He was doing all the Dawah rhetoric in court. It's like, this is not Speaker's Corner, you idiot. This is not going to work here. Dude says Hijab would have had to pay for the initial court action and be liable for spectators' costs if the spectator seeked it. Yeah, well, I mean, the court they did basically just throw it out. It was dismissed out of hand, but just because, I mean, as I say, he's condemned by his own evidence. That's the irony. So yeah, I really do hope that the spectator do seek court costs, because I'd love to see him take a massive financial hit for this stupidity. And just more of the same. As I say, I hope this Telegraph one also happens. This claim against the Telegraph. I don't know. I'll have to look in and see what was going on with that one. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. So this is Mohammed Hijab shooting himself in the foot. And speaking of that, we've also got now Mr.
Oh, that's good. I love it. That's
Yeah,
very clever.
Quran only fan. Oh, of course, he's appealing. Probably the only time he's ever been appealing. Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. Right, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to
Dear.
switch over to Mr. Yasir Qadhi and his desperate defense of the hadith situation. Let me just get the video up, if you bear with me 1 second.
Yeah, this is quite funny. Did you also get the one from Dr. Shavi Ali?
No, I haven't. Well, look, since I've been yammering on, stops. Just for anyone who doesn't know the Yasir Qadhi situation, could you just give a very brief overview of where we're up to so far with his situation? I know you went through it last week, but if you could just remind us how we've got to Yasir Qadhi's point in this.
Okay, I'll make it even shorter than last week.
Yeah, if you would.
The point is that Dr. Yasir Qadhi is somebody who sometimes doesn't really know what he's getting himself into. And last time it was also Mojab asking him, if you were to write, and if I were to give you an empty piece of paper, which Quran would you write? And this is something where Dr. Yasir Qadhi said, no, don't ask me that, don't do this, don't go there. But I'm going to tell you anyway, I would use all the Qurans. So what he's saying is that there are variants of the Quran which are not just I don't know, different readings or dialects or something. No, there are veritable differences. And he says this whole topic of Kirat and Aruf is extremely difficult. And we cannot explain this. And this is the hole in the narrative because we cannot answer the questions. Now, there was another interview where he was being interviewed about a book he wrote about the secondary text, because you have the primary text, which is the Quran, then you have the secondary, which is normally considered the six authentic, or considered to be authentic. What's not a revelation, these are the traditions of Muhammad. In other words, what he thought, what he said, and blah, blah, blah. And now he said, I'm wearing two hats. The one is the preacher, the other one is the academic. In the preaching role, I will go to the mosque and I will tell people, I will quote Sahih Bukhari, blah, 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 blah. But as an academic, I can't do that because the hadith, the whole principle of the secondary literature in Islam has been totally discredited. And this is a huge thing. It's like, because 85, well, between 80 and 85% of all Muslims are Sunni Muslims. They are based on the Sunnah. That's why they're called Sunnis. And the Sunnah is exactly these hadiths plus the biography. And now what he's done, he's pulled the rug from under them, because now he says this is discredited. So in reality, if he's being honest, he cannot use the hadith, only when he's preaching. And this is a huge thing now. And this is why Shabi Ali, for example, he's been talking about this for half an hour without saying a single thing. He just said, well, everybody needs to decide for themselves what they believe and what they want to believe. And this is so weak. This is showing the total dismantling, the total deconstruction and failure of Islam. And this is why Islam is collapsing. Yeah, fastest growing religion and all that propaganda bullshit. No, this is actually showing that as soon as you go and look under the hood, you're done for. Oh, sorry, that's it. It's done. Finished.
Sorry, you caught me off guard there. I was
Sorry,
I
I
was
was too
listening.
quick.
I didn't think you would suddenly stop so quick. Yeah, thank you. That's a brilliant summary. So yeah, so essentially you've got this situation where the hadith by the Western academic standard, the historical critical method, I think they call it, basically
It's a
says that hadith,
historical critical method, yeah.
yeah, they basically say that hadith just cannot be relied upon. This whole chain of transmission, scientific, science of hadith. What's the term I'm looking for? Well, it's the chain of narration. You know, the science
Snaps.
supposedly doing that, completely unreliable, and therefore you can't really say that any of the details in the hadith can be confirmed. And Yasir Qadhi has,
Can I just point something out, just so that
yeah,
people know, because maybe not everybody knows this, but these hadiths, the so-called the tradition of Muhammad, they consist of three different components. First of all, you have the contents itself, then you have the isnad, the chain of narration. In other words, this is supposedly something that Muhammad said. Somebody picked this up, uh, transferred it to their barber or son or whatever. They then gave it to the cleaning lady or something. She then gave it to the nephew, and then this got transferred over and over and over the centuries, even until somebody 4,500 kilometers away decided to hear this or get a piece of paper or scrap or whatever, and decided to collect them. And he got 200,000 of these, deleted 99%, and stayed only with something like 6 or 7,000. And these are then called the authentic narrations of Muhammad. The third element here is the corroborating sort of sayings. In other words, the authenticity level goes up as soon as you have other sayings by people corroborating the one saying that you have. So these are the elements that you have, but you need to appreciate that none of this can be authenticated. None of this can be verified. None of this can be. It, it, you can't follow through on this. These are all claims which are being made about somebody who, in the 7th century, in a city that never existed, then is said that these sayings. I mean, everybody knows Chinese telephone. And yet these things are supposed to be authentic over several centuries. Come on. Anyway, this is the state of affairs. That's why in academia, nobody takes them seriously.
yeah. So yeah, thank you for that. That's a really excellent summary of where we are. So Yasir Qadhi is in a big bind here, because on the one side he's got his religious indoctrination, which tells him he has to believe this, and then the other side because he is, yeah, you know, respect to the man, he does have proper education on this.
He's Yale educated.
Yeah, so he knows that by any reasonable legal, reasonable academic standard, he goes nowhere with this. And what in this video, which we're about to start now, he's basically trying to do damage control over this because he's been asked about this. Once again, he's exposed this problem. And we're going to look into it. I'm going to play most of this. There might be a couple of bits where I'll skip forward a little bit if he rambles, but essentially he's going to try and grapple with this and come up with excuses of how he can maintain his position. So we're going to have a look at this and we're going to deconstruct it and show why really it doesn't help him. So let's get going with the video, and over to you, Mr. Qadhi.
So first question, subhanAllah, difficult one, but it needs to be done. When you said that hadith does not meet the Western standards of academia, what does that mean? Is hadith applicable for us as Muslims? So obviously, brothers and sisters, this goes without saying that there is no Islam without the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is understood. Allah didn't just reveal a book, He sent us a messenger to explain the book. And we base our religion. There is no religion without the two sources of the Quran and the Sunnah. And we base our religion on the Sunnah, and the Sunnah is preserved through the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yasir, can you take a second?
Yeah, I was just going to pause myself there, but you go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, because I think it's actually quite atrocious what he's doing here, because he's admitting that the Quran written, or it's supposed to be the word of his God, literally, and his God can't do a proper job of bringing this Quran, this message down to people, so people need to explain it. Why can't this God who has created the people, who explain it to the other people who don't have this knowledge, why can't he create everybody with this knowledge, and then he can save himself the effort with a stupid Quran that needs to be explained by prophets, and then somebody needs to explain what the prophets are saying, and then you need scholars who can explain what the prophets are saying, who explain what the Quran says. That's crazy.
Yeah. I was going to make the exact same point.
Oh, sorry.
It's amazing that even within the book, it says the message here is clear, except for, as you say, we need to send down a man to explain it, and then companions and scholars to interpret it, and then legal scholars to interpret the interpretation, and on it goes. And we're still confused at the end of the day. So yeah, I mean, this is quite damning the way he says that. And yeah, that was exactly the point I was going to make. So
sorry.
Yeah, so let's carry on with Mr. Qadhi.
And the science of hadith is a separate category, and it is a science that Muslims should legitimately take pride in. And I think this is an obvious reality for all of us as Muslims. And as somebody who's been preaching and teaching for quite literally over 30 years, I don't think you would be hard-pressed to find a single dars or khutbah or fatwa that I've ever given in which I don't quote Quran and hadith. And of course, our scholars have developed a rigorous method of verifying hadith. But the question once
and that rigorous method is basically what you said, Stops. It's basically the telephone game, or as we used to politically incorrectly call it in England years ago, Chinese whispers. He said, she said, this, he said, she said. Yeah, and that is the so-called science. I mean, it's an insult to call that science. No real science is done that way. So I really hate this term in the first place, but it's ridiculous. Anyone can come up with a story like that and then tell his mate and then tell his neighbor and then tell his cousins, brothers, uncles, whatever. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but Rasik, the real problem is that if you look at a hadith, you don't normally get all this stuff around it. It's only when you do a deep dive that you actually you can get the document, the complete with the isnad. Now, what the isnad is just a couple of names. How can you verify over 300 years who was doing what at what time and how reliable were they? This is the case with Aisha, for example, where people say, well, she was 6 years old when they got married. And then some people say, well, no, not really, because Hisham, he was not reliable for the 5 years that he was relating this. So there could be some inaccuracy in the authenticated hadith that we have on this. So it's a laughing thing, really. It's so stupid. And of course it should be totally disregarded. And I don't understand why the people still go for these hadiths, because they're useless. That's why Quran is, for example, they are on the rise. because they're doing exactly this. They're saying this is stupid. Let's stop with the hadith. Let's take Quran only, which is the literal word of God. Well, but then you still have problems. But anyway, this is on the rise at the moment, exactly because of this.
Absolutely.
Again comes, before I answer, let's take a step back here. And this isn't just about this one question. You are my students here, you come to my masjid here. I want to teach you to think broader, to think a little more critically. So this isn't just about the one issue here.
No, you don't want us to. You don't want them to think more critically. It's the exact opposite, is what you want them to do. You want them to take a leap of. Actually, I think it. I don't want to spoil it because there's a brilliant term he uses in here. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's fantastic. Sorry, I'll carry on with this.
There's lots of problems taking place on social media, and one of the problems that social media has exacerbated, it's always been there, is to misunderstand a snippet or a quotation. The problem of being misquoted always happens. It's just the reality. But one of the principles that our religion teaches us, in fact, it is a part of usul al-fiqh. One of the principles our religion teaches us is that al-kalamu ala muradi qa'ilihi. Speech is to be understood in light of what the speaker intended. Now, this isn't just for me. This isn't just for this issue. I want you to start, as you move on in life, this isn't the only time something's going to happen with you or with other people. I want you to start thinking a bit more nuanced. Look at the speaker, look at the audience, look at the context, look at the overall track record. Lots of things need to be looked at. Let me give you an example every one of you at Epic is familiar with. Our masjid has been targeted by the far right, by a Zionist organization for the last 8 months. You know this. How do they target us? How do they target us? They take snippets, not just from me, from all of our speakers. Those snippets, those phrases, because you're in this ambience of a masjid, you fully understand them. But when you take those snippets and put them to a non-Muslim audience, and you paint them with a different painting, it is very easy to make a sinister connotation.
Yeah, well, I mean, the kind of thing that he's talking about with this kind of thing, yeah, if you talk to a Muslim audience and say, well, ideally, we would want Sharia for America and for Britain and for Australia and for Canada and Germany and everywhere else, and then you go out to non-Muslims and say, oh, no, we respect the law of the land. Yeah, there is a kind of contradiction in that, because what you're saying is, oh, no, we you know, us kind of, pious kind of Islamist types, we represent no threat. But when we're talking to Muslims, we're saying, yeah, let's push for a Islamic State tyranny. So, yeah, there is something very sinister when you do that. And I don't think it's taken out of context. It's just that you're not going to be honest to a non-Muslim audience in the way that you will to a Muslim audience, unless you're somebody like Ali Dawah or Mohammed Hijab, who just openly says it at Speaker's Corner. So I don't think there's any situation where it's like, oh, we're taking you out of context. No, we're putting you in context. The context is you're speaking to your Muslim audience and encouraging them to have the worst kind of Islamist kind of view of their religion, rather than actually being able to integrate into the great society and put all this medieval stuff in the bin. So yeah, I totally disagree with him on that. Anyways, yeah, let me play on.
They do this with me all the time. I say, for example, that, I don't know, Allah will protect his religion. Okay, he will. And this clip is going to go out and say, oh, look, he is threatening anybody who doesn't, follow Islam. I say that the Prophet predicted Islam is going to spread east and west. Oh, this is triumphalism. He wants to knock out America and this and that. Like, you can say.
Yeah, but you kind of do mean that, though. You're acting as if we're like, that's not what you mean. When you're talking about spreading east and west, you're not doing it in some cuddly way. It may include so-called missionary work, but we know there is a doctrine of jihad, and we know that you believe in that doctrine. So therefore, to sit there and say, oh, no, I'm all innocent. No, that's not what we're promoting. Yeah, you fucking well are. You're just trying to sugarcoat it now.
And on top of that, what is he actually promoting? How is it done? It's always combined with threats. Because if you don't believe it, you're going to burn. This is always the thing. You don't want to risk your life in eternity. You want to be in paradise. You want to be somewhere where you don't burn. And then they go and they threaten you and they say, well, if you don't do this, then you're going to burn. And that for me is extortion. And this is the
Yeah.
way that they are saying, well, all we're doing is we're just sort of reciting or citing the Quran, and we're just looking out for you, making sure that you get the best information so that you know what to do. It's not.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? The kind of the implied threat is on several levels, and yeah, on the one hand, it is just the hellfire threat, but then there is an implication. I don't think it's wrong to infer that there is the threat of, look, if we feel it's necessary, if we see the opportunity, then we are going to push for Islamic State, whether we're doing that through a legal system, whether we're doing that through a jihad doctrine, whatever it is, all options are open there. And he
Yeah.
has to accept that because he accepts the Sunnah. He accepts that as, he accepts everything in the hadith. And this is what Muhammad did in many times, and as
Mm.
did the Muslim generations that followed. So, you can't cry that you're being misquoted when this is literally what you do mean.
The most innocuous, innocent things, but because I'm speaking with some Arabic phrases, I say Allah, I say the Prophet, I use the word Sharia. They love whenever they say the Sharia. They say, oh, he wants to apply the Sharia over here. So when they do that,
Yeah, but you do. You all say it. You might try and couch it in more, propagandistic words sometimes, and sometimes you're blatant about it. But don't pretend that isn't your goal. That is what, as I say, I'm not saying this about all Muslims, obviously, but I'm saying about these kind of Dawah guys and who are all Islamists or Islamist adjacent. That is what you preach.
That is what is in the
all of you
Quran.
feel a
Yeah, exactly. It's in the Quran. It's what your prophet did.
legitimate
No, no, no.
sense of
It's not, sorry,
frustration and
it's
anger.
not
I
the
mean,
Prophet. In his,
No, I mean
the
as well as
doctrine,
that, as well as that.
yeah,
I don't mean that the prophet
the
said it.
doctrine of Islam says that Islam will conquer all the other, or dominate the other religions, and then the process was then done by Muhammad, was done through the Muslims, who then went into the different countries and did exactly that. They forced it by the sword, and this is. I don't know how much you want to go into details because we have accounts of people in Spain, for example. They heard about this and they threw themselves on the ground and they said, Allah, 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 because they heard that if you do this, you get spared, otherwise, you get killed. This is how Islam was spread into Spain, for example. And there
Mm,
you have very, very accurate accounts of exactly this happening and this process. So don't
absolutely.
come to me and say, yeah, it's all nice and peaceful and we're just preaching and showing you the Quran from the outside. No, you're not.
Absolutely.
come on, just do a bit of homework, do a bit of research, understand this is a speaker who has a track record. Now, realize that the same also happens from within our community. The exact same thing. Taking an aspect, taking a quotation, not looking at the context, and then quite literally reading in much more than what possibly could be intended.
No,
And this isn't just
sorry,
about me.
dressing. Just one example. Come on. Are you trying to tell me that what what IS did in Syria and in Iraq had nothing to do with Islam? Come on. How stupid do you think we are? We're not that gullible. We can see for ourselves what happened there and what level of violence was being used there.
Mm, exactly. And the genocide against the Yazidis, it
Yeah.
involved sex slavery, killing the men, enslaving the women and children, and passing them round to be used as sex toys.
The
Um, you know,
price list.
yeah, it's literal slave markets. I mean, you can't pretend that and then say, well, nothing to do with Islam, except for you see it throughout Islamic history. So, it goes to that ultimate stupid phrase: Islam has nothing to do with Islam. This is kind of what they're trying to promote. It's
Hmm.
ridiculous.
It's not about just my particular snippets. It's just the reality of what it is. Now, somebody like myself, I have the dubious distinction of having to deal with not only the external critics, the far right, but also Allah has blessed me and tested me with a large group of people who admire me and people who don't admire me, right? It's impossible for me to say something that passes the standards of every one of these demographics every single time.
Yeah, because you're sending contradictory messages to all these different
Hmm.
people, as propagandists do. That's why it's impossible for you to say it all at the same time, and why you get called out.
But he has to.
And I am
Look what happened to Abu Layth. Abu Layth was somebody who was very relaxed and was trying to relax Islam, trying to bring people into the 21st century. And what happened to him? He was attacked in his own house. Come on, this is
Mm,
what happens. No, I'm going to
And
carry on.
Ultra makes a good point. You know, the Dawah gang needs Dawah. He does put it. Yeah, he is saying this throughout this video, which is quite funny. He's basically saying you're not being as effective a propagandist as me. You're basically pushing. I mean, that's my interpretation of what he's saying. You're pushing too hard. You know, you do when you're doing this street Dawah, you're getting in people's faces too much. And in my interpretation, you're revealing too much about what us Islamists really do think. And this is the critique, I think, of the likes of Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawah and Smartajan, all the rest of them.
Active in multiple fields simultaneously. I preach to the masses. I teach a little bit more advanced. I teach much more advanced at the graduate level. I present in the academy. I give public speeches in front of non-Muslims. I'm invited to churches. I'm invited to events of a political nature. I speak at rallies. Last year, I spoke at the largest, pro-Palestinian rally in the country ever organized. And I was one of only 2 clerics to speak there, right? And again, if you've never spoken in a political rally, if you've never given a lecture there, a political rally, next time you see an effective speaker, go look at Martin Luther King's speech, go look at any.
I think I'm going to skip forward this political rally bit. He goes a bit on a tangent here, so I'm going to skip forward a minute or two, because what he's essentially saying in this next bit is, I go there and I give a speech and I give simple slogans, but obviously it's more complicated than that. And yeah, that is true to an extent, but he kind of goes on for a couple of minutes. Let me just skip forward a little bit on this because it's quite a long video, this one. Let me just see.
We are Jewish but pro-Palestinian.
Yeah, he was talking about some ultra-Orthodox Jewish people coming to a pro-Palestine rally, and he defended them and he got shit for it. So it's not particularly interesting.
Done the same thing. Subhanallah, the entire internet went abuzz by, with utmost respect, people who have never given political speeches.
No, it's still going on.
But it is what it is. So I have to deal with, as I said, multiple groups of people that are loving to read in their snippets, and Allah musta'an. It is what it is. And I'm not asking for your sympathies. I'm very happy that Allah has blessed me to be active in multiple.
Yeah, just to confer to if he compared himself to Martin Luther King, yeah, he is. They love it. I mean, Hijab does as well. He started talking about like as if he's leading a civil rights movement. I mean, he literally uses terms like emancipation for Muslims, like it's the American Civil War or something, and he's fighting to free the slaves that are the Muslims. I mean, they love using it. I mean, it's really insulting to genuine civil rights movements for these clowns who want a tyranny to live under, that they associate themselves with that language and those legitimate social movements and struggles. But yes, he is comparing himself to Martin Luther King. Oh dear.
Multiple fields, but my point is, I am also active in the Western Academy, and I teach and I present papers. Well, I'm no longer a professor, but I do present papers, and I am still involved, and I have an academic book. This is a peer-reviewed academic book. Had I been in the professorial field, that would have been my upgrade to full professor. I am full professor in my Islamic seminary. Had I not been, that book would have basically upgraded me to, that's an academic book. So I'm also active in that field. And in that field, I simply pointed out that according to the epistemology of the Western Academy, they have a different mechanism, and their mechanism, I understand, obviously I don't agree with it, I understand that for them, hadith does not give, definitive knowledge, because the Western Academy has its rules. And
yes, they've got actual genuine principles which they apply to everyone. They don't say, and this is literally, he's about to go into this as a defense, that the Quran is a special case, therefore we throw out the rules. No, the academy say it doesn't matter what we're looking at, it doesn't matter the religion, it doesn't matter the text, it doesn't matter the time period. We will apply the same standard to all of it when we judge it, which is the intellectually rigorous and honest thing to do. And he resents the fact that the Western Academy doesn't give Islam and the Quran special status. This is basically the crux of his argument as we get into it. And it's pathetic, because you'll see in a minute, he's quite happy for other religions to be subject to this standard. And he'll go into this in a minute.
Obviously,
that's what he calls the red line.
When I'm in the academy,
yes, yeah, exactly. The red line around the Quran.
I must abide by their rules. That's the way the world works. When I'm outside of it, which is most of my time, obviously I am a practicing Muslim. I observe obviously I'm practicing Muslim within the academy. I'm saying how I present, what I say. So I wanted to actually quickly give you a very brief introduction. What exactly is the historical critical method, and why would we as Muslims disagree with it? Simplistically, the historical critical method, the HCM, is a series of tools that was employed by groups of thinkers in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century who were trying to figure out, listen to this, how do we view the Bible when we're not believers anymore in the Bible? This is unprecedented for the Western world. If you're a Christian, the Bible is the Word of God. There were no non-Christians studying the Bible for the sake of literature. This is beginning in the 16th, 17th, especially 18th century. So what are, especially in Germany, what are people who don't believe the Bible is from God? How will they begin studying a book and give it its due without bringing in religion? So they developed techniques and methods. We call these techniques the historical critical method. And there's multiple strands within it: textual criticism, redaction criticism, form criticism. You have multiple theories within it. And where did the Bible come from? Who authored the Bible? I mean, if you're a Christian, you're going to say God. Well, obviously, if you're not a Christian, where did it come from? How do you begin this type of research? This is what the historical critical method began to do.
Yeah, and it's a great thing as well. And the fact that it came out of the Western tradition, even though the West was historically for the previous 1,000 years or so Christian, the fact that there was enough intellectual honesty to develop that method does say something about Western culture, which I think is quite positive. And while there may be some fringe examples in Muslim history of different groups potentially doing that, I'm not sure, I don't know that level of history well enough. The fact is, nothing in the Muslim world has come about like that to deal with the Quran honestly. And which shows why, in my view anyway, the Islamic world, intellectually speaking, is at a massive weakness, because they haven't got the balls to do what was done in the West to our own religious traditions. And this is
they're trying to suppress it, because you have this word sacrosanct. And this is exactly the process of pulling out all these books out of that corner and making them like publicly available. Like, come on, the Bible was in Latin for I don't know how many centuries to keep people from reading it. And then it was made available, and then all of a sudden they started thinking about this. And then as soon as critical thinking pops in, poof, that's it. End of story. And then you get, of course, the internet. This is where the religions come to die.
Indeed.
And of course, eventually, what happened was a number of fields were formed within this historical critical method. And by and large, here's the irony, we as Muslims would agree with the conclusions that they have about the Bible.
Oh, isn't that convenient? I mean, is anyone really surprised about that? I mean, yes, it's actually, I'll let him go on a bit more, because he just like.
Let me just say one sentence that comes to mind, because this is something that started me off on YouTube, by the way, because there was a sentence that I wrote to something like this, and that is that the Muslims will see the mistakes in the Bible, the Christians will see the mistakes in the Quran, and the atheists will see them in both. And this is a comment that I wrote, and somebody called Beholder God, a Greek convert, he then took me on and made a video about this one comment. And this is what started me off, because I was so pissed off with this guy that I made a video showing what an idiot he is. This is what started me off on YouTube.
And a legend was born on YouTube.
Yeah.
But it gets even worse now. Qadhi gets even worse with this. Let me just play this.
They now know, and we all know, the Bible was authored over many centuries. There's not just one author. It was redacted. They now know there's something called form criticism. There's something called, so for example, there's a thing, what did the quote unquote authors of the Bible actually intend? And how did later Christians misinterpret? And one of the things which we love, which is correct, the phrase when Jesus says, I'm the Son of Man, I'm the Son of God, right? Biblical scholars in the Western Academy point out what later Christians derived is not what the original authors intended. And for us as Muslims, like, yes, that's exactly what we say. Jesus never said he's the Son of God.
Yeah, so you get your little victory here, or what you think is a victory, because you agree with it against the Christians. But when that critical historical eye turns to the Quran, your story changes suddenly. And we'll see now.
Jesus never said he is divine. So my point is that philosophy, it kind of sort of worked with the Bible. And by and large, the Western Academy has demonstrated that its paradigm is valid on these other books. Now, 100 years ago, when the Academy turned its attention to the Quran, well then what are they going to use? The same tools they've derived for the Bible, they're going to apply to the Quran. And then 60 years ago, 70 years ago, they began applying it to the hadith as well. And of course, this is where we will have to say, we will not agree with those tools on our faith tradition.
I mean, that is just. You're almost lost for words. Like how he can be just so hypocritical with this. Like there's no actual, and he doesn't offer any good reason for this other than, well, of course the Quran's from God, and yet he can, just like you're saying, stops with that. When he looks at the Bible, because he doesn't believe in the same way that Christians do about the Bible, he thinks it's full of flaws or corrupted texts or whatever. Suddenly the historical critical method is just the business. It is fantastic, it's rigorous, it's perfect. But you turn that eye to the Quran and suddenly it's like, how dare you not realize that this is from God?
So disingenuous.
I mean, it's just unbelievable that like he can't see the inherent hypocrisy there, and this is what the indoctrination does. Hi, Jurassic. Happy to hear your voice again. Glad you're feeling better. Yeah, thank you, Rise and Damp. I appreciate that. Yeah, I am all much better than last week. And I'm using my voice to slam Qadhi if you've just joined us here. But I mean, that should almost be clips. That's worth putting on a YouTube short, really, or something like that, just to show the blatant hypocrisy. It's just like suddenly when they say it about the Quran, we're going to disagree. Yeah, well, then you're just showing yourself to be an intellectual fraud at that point, and this is why he struggled so much with it, because he wants to have his cake and eat it. He wants to have, and he even didn't just say the Bible. He says we're happy to use it for any of those other books. So again, if you turned it to the Torah or the Bhagavad Gita or the Sikh text, the Buddhist text, whatever. Oh, he'll be all behind the historical critical method then, but only the Quran must not be touched by rationality and by rigorous intellectual pursuit. That really says something about you as an academic. That really does. Sorry, that's just one of my favorite bits in this. Anyway, should we spin on and see what else he's got? Because it stops unless you wanted to add something. Sorry.
No. This is hilarious. I mean, it's actually quite sad.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, it's funny, which is why we're laughing at him. Right, let's play on a bit.
Because those tools are not neutral. There is no such thing as ultimate neutrality.
Well, they are neutral in terms of treating all the religions in the same way, and that's your problem. It's not about neutrality. It's about, in essence, equality, treating all the religious claims with the same skepticism. And you're happy for that skepticism to happen on any religion apart from your own.
Those tools have other biases. They're coming from a non-faith-based paradigm. And so, for example, one simple example,
yes, they would the whole point
exactly.
Of the story.
Of course, it's coming from non-faith-based. That is why you said you liked it for the Bible, because it's coming from that perspective.
I can't believe he's doing this. Come on, he's really making himself look like a I don't know, like a toddler at the moment. Really, this is 5th grade or something. Please,
never.
Doctor. Yes, yeah.
Oh no, Dr. Qadhi, you've got to stop this. I mean, what is he? 50 odd years old? I don't know. It's just embarrassing.
My goodness.
Consider an explanation of anything to be, well, because Allah did a miracle. That's not something the academy can take into account. So a simple example.
Yes, but you would, again, if they did the miracle of Jesus surviving the crucifixion and rising into heaven, because that doesn't fit with the Quranic narrative, you're fine with the historical critical method not taking that as a faith-based position. Suddenly it's the best thing since sliced bread. But as soon as if it's Muhammad on a winged donkey, then suddenly, oh, how dare you question this? You're not you're doing this from some biased non-faith-based position. What the fuck? Oh, sorry, I've got to stop pausing it, but you'll have to forgive us, audience, because this is just so funny. We do have to stop it and have a laugh at him, but I'll try and play a longer segment of this now just to get him going.
One of the main areas of research in the Western Academy is about the stories of the Quran. They love it. I also love the stories of the Quran, but I preach very differently. What does the Western Academy care about the stories?
What are the stories in the Quran? What stories are you talking about? They're Christian stories. They're Jewish stories.
Well, yeah, exactly.
They're all copied from previous stories from other people. Like the flood is from the Sumerians, from the Gilgamesh epoch. There's so many stories which are pre-used, pre-existed, pre-everything. So what stories are you talking about? There's nothing unique in the Quran. What is he talking about? They
No.
love the stories. No, they don't love the stories because they're fairy tales. Then you can't substantiate them. You can't test them. You can't verify them. They're just fairy tales. What are you going to do? Are you going to suddenly go back and find that Moses actually went and took slaves out of Egypt? You can't. So,
Mm.
okay, this is ridiculous what he's doing now.
I agree.
The stories represent the clues that they need to figure out where the ideas of the Quran came from. So they're going to find a story in the Old Testament, a story in the Syriac legends, a story here and there, and they're going to say, oh, this is obvious, therefore, that the author or authors of the Quran were influenced by this legend, this story, this, that.
Exactly.
And that's their explanation.
Which is a perfectly rational one.
Yes.
And it's not like they're saying, oh, this is 100% sure, but it's saying, look, with the evidence we got, which is always going to be piecemeal when you go back 1,000 years or 2,000 years, you're going to have a limited range of what you can draw upon. But they're saying, yes, when we look at the evidence, when we see these recurring stories, it's a reasonable hypothesis to say that this has contributed to what has come out as the finished product of the Quran. That is completely reasonable. You just basically want to say, no, just take it on faith that God wrote with his own hand and then, chucked it on the earth. I mean, it's just so stupid.
Now, obviously, this is a secular explanation because what they're ignoring is the most obvious explanation for a believer, which is, well, the reason why there's parallels is because the source is the same. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reason why there's the story of the flood in the Old Testament and the flood in the Quran, the reason why Moses is here, the reason why Isa, and of course it gets more complicated because there are some stories of Jesus that are not found in the New Testament, but they are found in what are called apocrypha, books that did not make it to the New Testament. So they were not known to the most of mankind. So, for example, the Quranic story of Jesus speaking from the cradle. This is
Oh God, I forgot about this bit. This is hilarious. Sorry. Let me carry on playing this. Sorry.
not in the New Testament. It's not there. Where is it? It's actually found in one of the Apocrypha, which was only discovered, 80 years ago in some grave in Egypt,
No,
the Coptic
bullshit.
Bible, the secret Coptic Bible, right? It was discovered in that one. How would a man in Mecca have access to that Bible when the
Yeah, so apparently it stops. Do you know specifically about this then? Because he's basically saying
this
that
is bullshit. These are all stories. They are the same stories, but they were not collected to be put into the Bible. But those were stories, nevertheless, that made it through the campfires in the Middle East. So all the speaking from the cradle, the infancy gospel of Jesus, for example, these were common stories. So just because the sleepers made it into the Bible and the Quran doesn't mean that all the stories have to be identical. Some made it and others didn't. Like, for example, you said you have the same story with Pharaoh, who, I don't know if you know the story with Nineveh, where oh my God. Okay, I don't want to go into too much
don't worry.
on a tangent here.
Don't worry too much about it. You don't have to go into too much detail. I think the point is that there's various non-canonical gospels and bits that were kind of
but
kept
the
out.
story of the guy being delivered by the fish and the Pharaoh being saved by God to be taken to Nineveh together to save them is also there. So this is also something that is in the Quran that is not in the Bible. It's also apocrypha, but these stories nevertheless were circulating around the region.
But what an irony again stops is that you'll say, oh, the Bible's corrupt, but if we find this non-canonical thing that didn't make it into the Bible and it agrees with the Quran, then suddenly that's enough to show that the Quran is real. I mean, this is not just, it's cherry picking outside the Bible as well as within it, the stuff that didn't even make it in. And he thinks that's a better method than the historical critical method, as long as it's applying, when you're talking about the Quran. Obviously with the Bible, remember what he says, no, he's fine with it being the full method being used there. But his explanation is, oh, well, Muhammad knew. Well, why did Muhammad not tell them to keep it in the Bible then? I mean, he was talking to a lot of Christians at the time. So, it's just such horseshit.
But then why didn't Muhammad correct the mistakes made in the Bible? Like, for example, the Bible makes the mistake of calling Pharaoh a name, not a title. And the Quran copies it. So they should have, because it's a couple of hundred years later, they should have been able to correct it. They didn't. They also took it as a name. So what's the point?
Mm.
Majority of Christians didn't have access to it. You understand this raises a lot of questions, right? For us, the answer is pretty obvious. And that is, it actually happened. And so that Bible recorded a version, and the Quran also recorded a version. It's not exactly the same because Christians didn't get it fully right, but the concept of Jesus speaking as a child is in that version. And the Quran has Jesus speaking as a child. You get my point here, right? The Western Academy would never allow for what? For a divine explanation. So they have to make up in a different way. And
yeah, they have to
Why
look at
should
it in a
they?
rational way. And let's just re-emphasize one more time. You enjoy that method when it's against every other religion, but against yours, you want the special pleading of divine revelation, which you're happy to let the historical critical method strip away from every rival religion. And you can't, if you can't see that as hypocrisy, you're a fucking idiot.
it's pretty obvious to me. I mean, when they're not going to accept the Quran to be from Allah, why would they accept hadith to be from the Prophet ﷺ? It's obvious to me. I personally don't think I said anything that controversial, but I understand it is what it is. Let me give you an example. My first exposure to hadith studies in the Western Academy, this is literally 21 years ago. I was taking my first class, literally my first class, meaning the semester, not the first day, but the semester we take. And of course, you're introduced to the Western method in the first class, obviously, right? And our professor, his name is Professor Gutas, you could look him up. Our professor at the time, we had to do an isnad analysis. So we go over and we do bring all the chains. So he's teaching us the Western, isnad system. And I forgot, it's been a long while, but I forgot which hadith, but basically it converged on, I want to say Sufyan al-Thawri or Malik ibn Anas. I forgot which of the giants. So we had like 10 chains. And all of the chains, they went all the way back to, let's just give an example, Imam Malik, and then Nafi', and then Ibn Umar, then the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? So we clearly found all of these books and all of these chains are going back to Imam Malik, and then from Malik to Nafi' to Ibn Umar to the Prophet ﷺ. So he began, speaking like this, that, so the common link is Malik, the source is Malik, the origin is Malik, speaking like this. And I'm straight out of Kulliyat al-Hadith in, Medina. And I just ask a very naive and awkward question because I'm not figuring out what was he saying, what is he saying? And I literally asked him point blank, are you insinuating that Malik ibn Anas just fabricated the hadith out of thin air? Are you insinuating that if all these chains link back to him, that he is because you're calling him the origin, the source, the common link, right? And he just looks straight at me and he goes, I never forget this. Well, prima facie, that cannot be ruled out. Meaning, that is a logical possibility, yes.
Yeah, because it is a logical possibility. Why would you be just like shocked by that? Yes, you're basically saying that first of all, you can't even trace the hadith back all the way to Muhammad. You barely demonstrate Muhammad existed. But yes, you can only go back to Malik. And he says, well, what's wrong with just accepting that on faith? Why would you doubt that he might have made it up? And it's like, well, yeah, of course it's a logical possibility. He's a human being. Human beings make shit up all the time. And again, if you don't have that automatic bias to begin with, that religious indoctrination that says this guy must have been telling the truth because my religion says so, of course you would consider that a logical possibility. And they're not even saying that he did make it up, but they're just saying there are alternatives that make logical sense, which are not God did it. And the look on his face just shows he just cannot even fathom that as a concept. It's amazing to me. Absolutely fucking amazing.
And at that stage, I literally said, I need to do my PhD in Hadith studies, not Ibn Taymiyyah. For a few months, I wanted to do my PhD in Hadith studies. Because I didn't even know how to respond, because the blasé attitude, yeah, maybe Malik just fabricated, a hadith about the Prophet. See, this is the fundamental difference. The historical method, it begins with the premise of skepticism.
Yes, that's its power. For fuck's sake. That is the strength of it. That's how you can reasonably determine if something is true or likely to be true, or there's a reasonable possibility of it being true, by starting with skepticism. If you start from the point of view that said God did it, there's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to examine or explore. So he's talking as if that's a weakness, and that is its ultimate strength, and he just doesn't get it.
That's what I call the Islam virus, which switches off critical thinking, first of all.
I mean, it really shows, and this is a Scott. Yasir Qadhi, for whatever you say about him, he does come off to me as a relatively intelligent person. Like, I don't think he's a stupid man, but his brain is just so damaged by this indoctrination. He just cannot think outside that box, and
Exactly.
it is kind of pitiful to see that.
That's what we're seeing here.
Oh,
It doesn't understand the reality of iman, and I get it in the sense, guys. When I say I get it, it's not an endorsement. Like when the Quraysh came to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and they said, "Do you know that your companion is claiming that he went to Jerusalem and he came back the same night? Do you believe him?" What did Abu Bakr as-Siddiq say? Did he start quoting Einstein in quantum physics and start proving with mathematical equations that speed, travel, light is travel? Did he start trying to prove scientifically? Or did he just say, look, I know you won't get it, but I get it? This is what I'm saying. It's logical to have iman. It's not illogical. It's logical. When you have iman, you understand Imam Malik would not, it's impossible for Imam Malik to fabricate just off the top of his head. But
yes. So again, I mean, this couldn't be more circular reasoning. My religion tells me because he was, I'm not sure, was Malik actually, I don't think he was, I can't remember what generation he was, but it's basically saying because he's one of the honoured generations of the original, 3 generations of Muslims or whatever, it's impossible for him to lie. And the reason I know that is because I have faith in it. And the reason I have faith is because my religion tells me this. And that's it. So it's just circular. And yet he's like, why can't these non-Muslims just understand my circular reasoning?
The Easter Bunny must exist. Who else would hide all those eggs?
I mean, it's not a wonder that Islam is just so far behind the rest of the world in their intellectual academic capacity. And I genuinely feel sorry for the many intelligent people in the Muslim world, and particularly those who are skeptics or atheists or agnostics or whatever, who have to put up with this crap, because
That's why it's collapsing so much.
it
Because
must be
people are
so,
starting to.
yeah, well, it must be so infuriating. Anyway, let's get it. But that's brilliant. It's just like, it's logical to have iman. It's logical to not use logic. That's basically what he's saying.
when you don't have iman and you don't understand the repercussions of iman, you've never really lived in a bubble of iman, then
I mean, that's a good phrasing. I mean, I think he said the quiet part out loud there, lived in a bubble with man. That's exactly
That's
how
accurate.
I would phrase it. You do live in a bubble.
the evidence to you would suggest when it's going through Malik and there's no other person, just suppose there's no other person except, Malik. And there are a number of hadith like this that they go through chains to the tabi'un or whatever like that. So your assumption then from your paradigm would be, well, the source is, Malik. So my point is that the context of the question that I was asked coming from a secular paradigm, and I simply pointed out factually, I get it from the Western paradigm. They will only go so far, and then it's a trust issue, which I firmly agree with. I mean, another issue is we have in Islam something called the status of the companions being adalat al-sahaba, meaning companions of the Prophet ﷺ will never lie about the Prophet ﷺ. Now, is this a faith-based or an empirical-based claim? Which of
Faith, obviously, yeah.
the two is it? I'm asking you. It's faith-based. It's faith-based, right? From their perspective, literally, I'm giving an example that there is a tradition about obeying the ruler. And they will literally say, well, this is very convenient, that he's the ruler and he's narrating a tradition of obeying the ruler. I'm just giving an example, right? They would say this. They don't understand the concept of adalat al-sahaba. They don't have that iman. So when I factually point out, obviously, I get it, some people wanted me to be more, but this is not me. For me, this is not the context. The interview is 2 hours long, and at the very end, they asked this question. I simply factually stated there are two different paradigms in this regard. If you want to study this reality about the historical critical method and its own assumptions and biases, this is a very interesting topic. Maybe one day, I do plan to one day talk about it and elaborate.
This is exactly the problem. This is exactly the problem, because what you are doing now is you're showing that you're a hypocrite. You are showing that on the one hand, you are preaching hadith, Whereas you know that they are false. You know that if you look at a factual point of view, they do not make sense. You need faith in order to be able to preach this that you know is wrong. And if you ignore the facts, what are you? You're a hypocrite because you're saying, I don't care about the facts. I will preach what I feel like. It doesn't matter whether it is correct or not. And this is the whole problem that you are openly admitting to at the moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, he's literally using things like, I'm in a faith of bubble. The academia, they're only going to stick to the facts. And he's saying that as if his faith bubble is like he's pouring scorn on those who will only stick to the facts. It's incredible, absolutely incredible to me that people
Yeah.
think like this. But yet,
Science is based on facts, and faith is science is based on facts, and religion is based on faith. There you have it.
yeah, and yet he thinks he's in the stronger position for that. Unless it's any other religion in the world, and then he'll go to the facts and say, "Hey, you shouldn't just take that on faith. Only Muslims are allowed to do that."
But it's just
oh,
ingenuous.
it's. Anyways, we've got a bit more to go. Let's carry on.
Chat. Obviously, well, by the way, if you want to read, in my opinion, the biggest name in this field, it is Talal Asad. Talal Asad, the son of Muhammad Asad. Muhammad Asad, if you know his famous biography that he wrote, The Road to Mecca, his son Talal Asad is a genius, really, and he's written a number of books where he demonstrates the academy is not neutral. The academy has its own presumptions. Nobody is neutral here. You have others as well. Wa'il Halaq is another.
Yeah, I mean, I bet those books are basically just repeating what Qadhi said. They're not neutral because they don't give Islam special privilege. I mean, if a Muslim has written that book, that's basically what it's going to say. So I don't even need to look this guy up. I've never heard of him, but anyway.
Name Saba Mahmoud in her own way has done this. Joseph Lombard. There's a number of people that have written some good articles that deconstruct the presumptions of the academy, and maybe one day I'll also talk about that as well. But I want to make a clear statement here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to teach you to think long-term and critically. One of the issues that I have, I don't believe in simplifying or sugarcoating complex aspects. When I taught the seerah, I made a condition upon myself. Anything that's awkward by other people's standards, I'm not going to just ignore it. I don't believe that there's anything in our religion that we cannot defend. Everything we can defend it.
Well, yeah, if you take it on faith, of course you can, but that's not a real defense. So that isn't doing the job you think it is.
But one of the things I feel, and this is where it gets complicated, I believe sometimes some people, many people, to defend our religion, they employ overly simplistic tactics to do so. And when they say simplistic platitudes or slogans that are factually incorrect, and they try to prove something that is correct, the critics of Islam come and they will obviously point out that what you said is wrong.
Now, this is interesting, this segment, because he is basically having a dig at the entire Dawah community, the likes of Smal Tajana and Ali Dar and Mohammed Hijab and Hamza and all the rest of them. He is basically acknowledging that they come out to Speaker's Corner and all their other platforms and just lie about stuff. And, respect to Qadhi for actually pointing that out. Yeah, you come out and you just say stuff that you know is not correct just to try and win an argument. So I'll give Qadhi a point for that, because I think he's shown a little bit more integrity. And he'll probably get shit from this from all them, because he's basically called them out as liars, which is all we do as well. So, oh dear.
And when they prove what is said is wrong, they attempt to then prove the final point is also wrong. And this is one of the...
Well, yes, if you lie about your religion, then we can assume that it's reasonable to say it's probably not true. You wouldn't need to lie about it if this was supposed to be from God.
The reasons why there has been a number of issues or controversies about things that I've said, I don't personally believe in overly simplistic and ignoring some of the more awkward or difficult truths. And we live in a time and a place where all you need to do is one simple Google search.
Exactly, as you were saying earlier, Stops. This is the thing. You can't get away with doing that anymore. which is why I think a lot of these Dawah channels are actually starting to die a bit when I'm looking at their numbers, because you can just go and look up their lies, and people like you and people like me will do videos where we expose their. You can just go and look at the Islamic texts and just show that they're flat out lying about this stuff. So, and Qadhi reckon that Qadhi's one of the few people that realize this is a problem for Islam, because it's just showing that you've got a terrible reputation and you can't actually stand up to the critiques from, whether that's from atheists or Christians or Jews or whoever else. So, yeah.
But it's simplistic.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, this part of it, I sort of agree with Yasir Qadhi, and I think he is slightly above the others on this point only. But the rest of it is you know, he's a fool.
And you will find the exact same criticisms, the exact same, you know, issues out there. Some of the preachers, and I get it, I'm not criticizing them. Some of the preachers, they have this.
Well, you just called them liars, so I think you are criticizing them. But yeah, let's carry on.
Good mentality of protecting the masses. They want to shelter your ears from hearing some of these awkward truths.
And this goes to another point, which he is admitting that this Dawah stuff isn't really about getting converts, which is what we have said for years, is that this is about trying to convince Muslims not to leave the religion. That is the primary goal of Dawah, because we know they get very, very few converts. It's more about those Muslims with doubts. We're going to shore up your belief with a bullshit load of lies. And
remember when Dr. Smith was holding up the 26 Quran versions, and Hijab came and he was like, come with me, he's just talking shit, come with me, don't listen to him, trying to get them away from reality of the several Quran versions.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Rising Damp says, love stops analogy. The internet is a graveyard of religions, using that one. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah. It's a good analogy.
And I get it. I don't want my kids to hear these awkward truths as well. But
why
the
not?
problem...
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, none of them want their kids to hear actual good critiques of their religion, because they know
he wants them to do critical thinking, and then he says, well, but not my kids.
Yeah, exactly. Critical thinking for thee, not for me and mine. It's amazing.
Somebody should also address those awkward realities as well. Some people should preach simple, I understand, but some people should point out, guys, our hadith system is amazing and it is unprecedented and there's nothing like it. But yes, there are some aspects that require faith, and those aspects are logical and rational. I mean,
yeah, there's nothing like it. There's nothing as bad as ours, where basically we just plug the gaps with faith. That's not a system of anything related to science. I mean, could you imagine if that's like how we were calculating the speeds of the planets, you know, orbiting in our galaxy, in our solar system or something like that? Well, we can't really work out this bit. So we'll just have faith that Jupiter teleports to the other side of the sun every once in a while or something. You know, you can't fucking do real science like this. And yet he promotes it for this hadith study, you know, hadith so-called science. It's just insulting.
It's called making shit up, and you're supposed to believe it.
Exactly.
Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anh, after all that he's done, he's not going to lie about the process. It's illogical to say this, but admit that this is a point, it's a logical leap of faith.
That was the phrase I was looking for, a logical leap of faith. This is brilliant. This is, oh man, I mean, what a contradictory statement, a logical leap of faith. So I'm just going to, something which I've got no good reason to believe, it's logic for me to believe it. This is Islam, ladies and gentlemen. This kind of cognitive dissonance. And sorry, I just love that. Somebody's got to do a t-shirt. Any entrepreneurs out there, have Yasir Qadhi's face on it with, I took a logical leap of faith for the Quran. It's a big brilliant. Yeah, like, we really should highlight this. Everyone, spread the word. Qadhi's got a logical leap of faith.
This is like Trump making up this word sedacious. It's sedacious. So,
well, smart,
the logical leap of faith.
What was that other demented? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Sobs.
No, I was just going to say, the logical leap of faith, it is sedacious.
Oh, we need drastic merch. You know what? I could do that on my other channel, couldn't I? I could start doing, you know, all these different Dawah phrases like logical leap of faith. And there was another. What was the one that Mohammed Hijab came up with when he was talking at Speaker's Corner? It was like Smile. You'll probably know the one that I'm talking about in the chat. it's something circular something. I can't remember. It was some really like a butchered contradictory thing of a famous phrasing. Smile, if you know what I'm talking about, put it in the chat, will you? Because it's something like, it's not circular reasoning, but anyway, I can't think of it. But if it comes to me, I'll mention it. But yeah, logical leap of faith, ladies and gentlemen. This is Doctor Yale, educated Dr. Qadhi. Logical leap of faith.
I don't see this as illogical at all. And understand, if you don't believe in Allah, you don't believe in Iman, you don't understand Iman, then you can say Imam Malik fabricated it. It's coming from a paradigm that obviously, I understand why, but my understanding doesn't mean I'm sympathetic to it. And so when I'm operating in that paradigm, unfortunately I do have to operate in that paradigm. So you have to deal with that reality and take that into account. So bottom line that I have, and that is that I wish I could say this is the final misunderstanding, but no, it's going to continuously happen, unfortunately. I don't aim to confuse you or to cause controversy, obviously, but
if you continue to talk shit, then you will do. So that's just the logical leap of faith we're going to have to take, as the consequences of your actions.
Controversy in and of itself is a natural element of any preaching and teaching. If it's not going to happen here, it's going to happen there. And obviously, I don't want to give the Islamophobes material, a'udhu billah, but I also believe being overly simplistic is actually the fundamental problem. Because when you try to defend that which can be defended in a way that you should not defend, then the Islamophobes attack your arguments.
There you go.
Islamophobes, all the ones that actually do use, or at least try to use, logic and critical thinking. That now is the baseline of being an Islamophobe, according to Mr. Qadhi.
Yeah, but Yasir, do you think that somebody like Hamza Tsortzis will hear this and sort of think, oh, is he talking about me? Because that's what he's doing. But I think somebody like Tsortzis or Mojab or Dawah or what's his other Jesus, the guy with the evolution. Do you think that they will support? Thank you. Do you think that they will sort of attach this to themselves and sort of think, is that what I'm doing, or is this just like I don't know, some sort of polish which will just make everything slide off them?
I think on some level in private, they've got to know that he is talking about them, because who else is he talking about? And I think they all do look up to him, because unlike Sabor and Mohammed Hijab, who with all these fake degrees and all these dodgy institutions, he does actually have a proper education from a prestigious institute, and I think for them that makes them look up to him. So I don't think in their mind they don't want to break that. They don't want to feel like they're being insulted. So although they probably do realize it, they'll rationalize it in some other way, or they'll probably think, well, I'm one of the good Dawah guys. He was probably talking about some other guy down Speaker's Corner. It'd probably be that kind of thing.
Could be.
Yeah, but I mean, who else could it be talking about? He's literally describing what they do every single day.
You can easily defend the sanctity of the Quran. I believe you can easily defend the sanctity of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But I also believe the way that many others in the da'wah scene are doing it, in my humble opinion, is that they're opening themselves up to easy criticisms of their techniques.
Yeah, that's what I've been telling them for years.
Yeah, no, he's right. I mean, Qadhi, he identifies the problems pretty accurately in this section, which is why I thought it was worth going through. And he recognizes that most of these Dawah guys are just a fucking liability. They're not helping Islam really at all. He wants them to do the more kind of slightly more sophisticated manipulation that he does. But obviously they haven't got the education, and they haven't got the temperament for it. I think they're so kind of, they love the confrontation. They're so driven by their ego. At least with Yasir Qadhi, I don't think he's egotistical. He's quite happy to take the slings and arrows because he thinks he's doing it at a deeper level, which compared to them he is. But the likes of Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawah, they are all about the confrontation. It's all about squaring up to people and like, oh, I'll bust you up, kind of. It's kind of the thug element of it. And he knows that's really counterproductive because it just makes Islam look thuggish.
Put another notch in my Quran.
This is why there's a bit of a clash going on. And obviously, my brothers in Islam who have misunderstood my work, my works. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal keeps our hearts united and we minimize this. And also, I have to say this for the record. You know these da'wah online Islamophobes, not the da'wah, sorry, the Islamophobes that are engaged with the da'wah crowd. I mean, guys, none of them are academics, really. Frankly, they're failed academics. And I'm being blunt here, not just because they're attacking me, honestly.
Well, he's kind of talking about people like us in some respect. Not that I'm not big enough to be known, but I mean, he's right. I'm not even just I mean, yeah, I am a failed academic in the fact that I crashed out of university. I didn't even finish my degree. So in that case, he's right. But the point is, if you're Yale educated and you've got 30 years of exploring the hadith and the Islamic literature in general, and your best argument for your position is it's faith-based and special pleading, and the fact is people like us, certainly myself, who doesn't have some massive degree education, I can pull you apart in a video like this. What does that say about us? It says that your position is so damn weak, damn weak, that some I admit I'm just a nobody on the internet, and yet I can pull your bullshit apart. So what does that say about you? What does it say about Islam? That's the best you've got?
I really think we are exaggerating their importance far more. They're really a bunch of losers.
Go look at their
lifestyles. Go look at
we're killing.
Look, by the way, obviously he's talking about the bigger Dawah people, but I'm definitely not a loser most of the time. I just like mocking idiots. That's all. Yeah, I mean, obviously he's talking about the bigger, particularly the ex-Muslims and maybe the Christian apologists as well, people like David Wood and stuff like that. But to be fair, these people, again, while I don't agree with the Christian position, I think they do a fairly decent job, at least on some aspects, of pulling apart the the Islamic position,
and having an impact.
Yeah, and yeah, oh yeah, no, you are worried about us. That's why you're making this claim. The first thing that is a good sign when people say, oh, they're nothing, you shouldn't worry about them, they're no one, they're losers. To me, if you really felt that, you wouldn't even need to mention it, because we wouldn't even be on your radar. So again, it's a sign of weakness, I think.
Some of these are like they're convicted of beating their own fathers. One of the main guys, attempted to murder his own father, went to jail, and he's one of the main guys that's on this.
Yeah, so he's directly talking about David Wood, and yeah, and so obviously, if he was nothing, you wouldn't be bringing up his name or bringing up such specific details that you could only be talking about David Wood.
So when is he going to talk about the gin and tonic show?
Oh, never. We are destined to be the nichest of programs, and we're proud to hold that.
Complete failures. Look at their followings. My God, an average khatira I give has more views than some of their biggest videos. I mean, guys, calm down, really.
Yeah, but you say that. Yeah, I mean, so I've got a couple of videos on my channel which get more than, say, Hamza's Den's his flagship live stream. So it's not, a lot of these Dawah channels are kind of crashing a bit in terms of when you've got millions of subscribers and you can barely pull in 20,000 for a video. That's starting to say that people, I think it is having an effect. The combined effect of people challenging from lots of different positions is weakening the impact of this Dawah. And so I'm glad to be a small part of it, quite frankly, because I can't stand it.
How does he explain that one of my videos has almost 3 million views? What is
yeah,
that
exactly.
about?
Well, exactly. I mean, you are a much bigger dog, and you've been doing this much longer than me. So yeah, I mean, you've had a significant impact, and you're doing it in multiple languages as well. So yeah, it's funny. It's funny, this kind of defense. Like, yeah, don't worry about them, but I need to mention their name to tell you to don't worry, because I'm worried about them. Anyways, right, we got a few minutes left on this, so let's just plow on, and we'll see where Qadhi ends up.
These people, they should not even be mentioned by name. That's why I don't mention them by name, by and large. They're not even actual academics. Actual academics that are studying, generally speaking, you find their discourse to be more nuanced and more precise. As for these people online, let them be. What do you expect them to do? They're not going to harm the deen. And
sorry, Jesse, is he aware that David Wood is a Dr. David Wood, and that Jay Smith is a Dr. David? What is he talking about? If I'm looking at what's the guy's name who's doing all the international stuff? I think now he's so sick, or he even died, that he couldn't do this anymore. He's also a PhD. What is he talking about? I mean, Does he think you have to have a PhD in hadith before you can actually talk about them? Is that
No.
what his criteria is? Come on, how can you have a PhD in fairy tales in order to be able to talk about this? This is silly.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, Yasir Qadhi is, in terms of the public-facing Muslims, one of the basically is, in some respects, a top cleric that will appear in these social media spaces. And his best argument with all his years of training, as I said before, is take it on faith. That's what you got your degree for, and to come back with that. This is why you'll get basically owned by anyone who just uses a modicum of critical thinking, because the
And then he calls
position is just
himself
so
an
weak.
academic. Come
Oh.
on.
Them more
You
attention than
should
they
be
deserve.
ashamed
But in
of
any
it.
case, bottom line, it's not my goal to, astaghfirullah, create drama or to give Islamophobes ammunition, much less between
But
my
you
fellow
are.
Muslims in the da'wah field. My
Yeah, and play the victim again. Let's start throwing in Islamophobe again, because nothing says strength like the fake victim card. Jesus.
goal really is to defend the religion, the Quran, the Sunnah, the Seerah. But my philosophy of defending is different than many of those involved on the da'wah field. I believe to defend, you need to build more robust and more nuanced arguments. This is the point.
Where are they?
But yeah, exactly. You've still got the same argument fundamentally as every other Muslim on the planet. Take it as faith, assume it's from God, and then follow. This is what the likes of the EF Dawah guys do, Imran and Abbas. They basically say, well, if you're not sure about something, just know that it comes from God anyway, and don't worry about it. You're essentially just giving a slightly more verbose version of that argument. So what's the fucking point in spending 10 years getting your degree or whatever if this is the horse shit that you end up with? I could have given you that information for free, mate. I could have didn't have to waste 10 years of my life studying Islam to do it. Oh dear.
And with utmost respect, I don't agree with much of the simplistic rhetoric. That simplistic rhetoric resonates with lots of people. I get it. But it's simply not factually correct.
So there you go. So even Qadhi's basically saying the bullshit that gets churned out by the Dawah crowd is not factually correct. So there you have it. Any Muslims listening, Qadhi is basically just slammed the entire Dawah scene with that sentence. There's another one that should be on a t-shirt, I think. Actually, we got loads of little good clips we can take out of this. Actually, it's been a fun one tonight. I've really enjoyed this one.
Even if it resonates with lots of people. So when I disagree, it's not because, astaghfirullah, I'm doubting the Quran or Hadith. It's because to prove it, we're going to have to change and be more precise in what exactly are we defending. And acknowledge, like in the Hadith here, that, and look, there's a lot to acknowledge, subhanAllah. Let them say whatever they want about that faith-based. In the end of the day, we can come back and say, factually speaking, there is no system that any civilization has developed that comes even close to isnad verification. That is a fact. We have elaborate.
My goodness.
Oh, he did not just say that. I mean, he can't. Again, you do wonder, can he really say those words without laughing? Because I can't hear him without laughing. No society has ever come up with a system that's better than this faith plugs the gap system that we have, except for any system that's come after it is better than that. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I just got to pause it sometimes because it's so ridiculous. We've got a couple of minutes left of this. I think 3 minutes left, so we'll plow on and then have a little summary at the end.
Biographies of over 10,000 narrators spanning 5 generations, literally the entire geography of the ummah. We have a sophisticated mechanism that, okay, I admit there's an element to faith. Let's just admit that. Let's be fair here. But then once you've admitted that, once you have acknowledged and conceded there is an element that we're going to trust Imam Malik, but then say, but look at your equivalents. You guys have no names whatsoever, no asanid, no biographies. You guys have the people that wrote your New Testament, you don't even know anything about them, much less who narrated from them.
See, now he's spun completely off the rails here. At first, he's gone from talking about the historical critical method, which is not a religious-based a system of doing something. It's a secular-based system. He's spun off now into, but you people don't know about the Bible and stuff like that. So he's gone off into Dawah apologists against Christians. Exactly. This is how much he's spinning out of control now. He's just doing what about with the Christians. I mean, that's It's just
And that's how
absolutely
primitive
ridiculous.
it is. He doesn't have anything. So the only thing he can do is attack his competition. And that's it.
Yeah, except for the actual historical critical method, because he hasn't really got any criticism, because that is essentially the gold standard. Oh man, okay, all right. We just got 2 minutes. Sorry, guys. We are really enjoying this one because it's just so stupid.
You have no idea who Luke and Mark and Matthew are. You have no idea of their biographies. So, my opinion, if we can speak factually, we're able to defend in a far more robust manner. And without a doubt, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is an integral part of Islam, and Allah has promised to protect His religion. And I mean, again, I find it embarrassing, to be honest. I literally have to say this. Like, guys, my entire 32 years of da'wah, try to find a khutbah or lecture, I haven't quoted a hadith. Try to find a fatwa, I haven't quoted a hadith. The entirety of the seerah is what? Quoting narrations. Of course, for us, that's what we believe in. And yes, we don't need the Western paradigm. But as somebody who navigates both of them, when I'm in that circle, I'll be speaking in a manner that is conducive. One of the main points that a lot of people said I should have been more, critical or whatnot. I get it, but it's like, I've taught, when I used to teach in the university, I used to teach classes on religion. That's a part of what professors do. It's not just Islamic studies, you teach religion. And I remember one day that I said a phrase and I'm like, wow, that phrase, if anybody heard it, I'd be in a lot of trouble. I'm going to repeat it online. Let's see if trouble happens. Literally. You know what I said I was teaching an intro to religion class, right? I said, so Christians believe that Jesus is Son of God, and Muslims believe that He is a prophet of God. And then I went on. That's all. And I said to myself, if that simple phrase, which is factually correct, if somebody who has never been in a secular environment, many of the people where I had studied from, never met a Christian in their lives, never interacted with it, if they had heard that phrase and the nonchalant manner that I just said a factually correct statement, Christians believe Jesus is Son of God, Muslims believe He is a prophet, and then I moved on to another point. If I had said that, it is so easy for somebody who has never heard a simplistic statement like that to literally accuse me of blasphemy. A'udhu billah, Allah says the mountains are going to...
I mean, that in itself says something about the at least the current situation in the Islamic intellectual tradition. The fact that a simple phrase like that will be treated as blasphemy. So what does that say about intellectual freedom in the Muslim world, or at least amongst Muslims, whether in the West or the East? I think that's damning that something like that would get him be accused of blasphemy.
Break asunder. Allah says the earth is going to be shattered, because literally the Quran says that. They ascribe to Allah that He has a son. The mountains are going to break and the sky is going to split. And that's absolutely valid. And I believe it is blasphemous to say that. But when I'm teaching an intro to religion class, I'm not giving a khutbah. And I'm sorry, brothers and sisters, but I'm going to have to say this. I want my students to raise the bar of learning. I don't want to teach you these simplistic baby food formulas. You need to understand, when you're teaching in an academic setting, you're going to say these types of things because that's what is required. And
yeah, exactly. That's the truth of it. It's not that you really want to do this. It's because if you want to have the prestige of being attached to this academic tradition and these institutions, you have to play by rules that if you were just doing it the Islamic way, you wouldn't spend your time on it. But you want the credibility of being attached to this to make yourself in a more prestigious position, so you'll go along with it. But ultimately, you've got the same position as Ali Dawah and the same, as far as I'm concerned, the same level of sophistication, the same arguments. You've just got a wider vocabulary. You're not squeaking and threatening people down at Speaker's Corner or doing it in the crude manner that Ali Dawah does. But your arguments are the same, ultimately. And you dismiss everything that's good in the Western standards, in the Western academia. So this, I mean, it's just a joke. Sorry, this comment. Drastic Sops, do you know who Too Many Marys is? She could intellectually Yasir Qadhi. She's excellent. Sorry, that was the person who was talking in the chat earlier. Yeah, I mean, I did put some of her comments up. Yes, acknowledged. Sorry about that, little skip. But yeah, I mean, fundamentally, Yasir Qadhi is no different than Dawah crowd in that sense, using the same arguments.
I expect you to do that as well. And we want Muslims in the academy. We want Muslims everywhere else. And that's a part of the new discourse that's going to happen. Just like when the far right takes a khutbah of mine and puts it in theirs, I want you to understand. When people are giving political speeches, when people are speaking in churches and synagogues, when people are giving academic lectures, they're not going to use the language of the khutbah. I don't need to apologize for this, frankly. I need to ask you to understand that I'm not the only person. Other people are involved in multiple areas as well. So you need to start thinking about this reality and start being involved and realize that there are different categories of people that are being taught different things at different levels. As long as what is being said is factually correct, I do have a rule that I put up on myself, and that is I will never lie about the religion. Never.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if I can, the funny thing is, I've not really done that many, if any, actual reactions to Yasir Qadhi videos. I'm sure I could find where he does lie, but I suppose I have to give him the benefit of the doubt for the moment. I mean, Stops, you've done reviews of his videos before. Have you ever caught him lying about stuff?
I would have to think about it.
Okay. All right. We'll give him the
100%
benefit.
sure. Yeah.
We'd have to
He
give him
has
the
to.
benefit of the doubt for now, but I'd be very surprised if he doesn't, because every other Dawah apologist I've caught in a lie in a specific video on my channel. So, but anyway, we literally just got a few seconds now, so we'll wrap up.
I'm speaking the truth. So understand this point here. Bottom line, without a doubt, my track record, I mean, as a Muslim, as a believer, there is no religion without the Sunnah. That's the reality of our faith. And the Sunnah has been preserved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the mechanisms of its preservation are valid and binding for believers.
Yeah, for believe, and that's basically it. So for believers, they are valid and binding, but for the rest of the world who doesn't have that presumption, it's a load of garbage, basically. And that's really what you're forced to admit in this video.
No, but Plastic, he's lying all the time. I mean, everything that he's saying is a lie, because he says if as soon as you take reality into consideration, this all goes out the window. But you have to have faith in order to be able to defend it. So he knows full well that all this is wrong. He knows full well that all this is fabricated. He knows full well that you can only go and justify this using faith. So he's lying all the time. I was just thinking about
in
his
that
first
sense,
thing with the holes in the narrative. It's the same story. He knows full well that it is wrong, that there is no preservation of the Quran. So he says there's a hole in the narrative, and then he turns around and says, "But I will preach that the Quran has been preserved letter for letter, word for word." And then he goes and turns around and says the exact opposite. So he's constantly lying.
No, yeah. From that point of view, yeah, I absolutely agree. But anyways, right. Well, look, I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Smile, Jay, Quran only fans, dudes. Too many Marys. Anyone else? April. Anyone else? If I've missed you, I'm sorry. Stops. Do you want to sum up what you think about tonight's video?
Okay, number one. Okay, it's true that it was fun. The thing is, I've lost all respect for Dr. Yasir Qadhi, I must admit. A year ago, I still thought that there was some integrity and blah, blah, blah. But by now, he's just another primitive Dawah guy. Now, what I find disconcerting, let's say, is that what he's done today with this video is kiss ass, okay, of all the Dawah guys, because he's trying to smooth the waves over for Muslim followers, for Muslims, the primitive ones, where he says we are keeping them in the dark. We talk about these things behind closed doors. So with those people, he wanted to make good. And that's what he's done. What he's going to do, he's going to turn around in the academy, on the academic side, and he's going to argue, I had to do that in order not to get the people to riot on this. So I had to say these things, knowing that here in academia, we know that this is not really true. So I think this is making him a two-faced, dishonest dick, because is lying to both sides. He's telling Muslims, no, you have faith and everything is okay, knowing full well that is not. And on the other side, he's saying, no, I know it's not right, but I have to say this anyway, because if you use faith, then it works. So he's making himself an idiot on both sides. And you can't do that. You can't have a level of integrity and be taken seriously if you if you if you act like this. It doesn't work. And this is why I've lost all credibility, all respect for him now.
Yeah, no, it's a good summary. I mean, I would only, I mean, from my point of view, I never had any respect for him, to be honest. So I didn't have anything to lose. He's definitely better in some respects than the Dawah crowd in that, yes, he talks in a somewhat more sophisticated way, less simplistic way,
Yeah,
but his arguments are not fundamentally different. And
correct.
the thing is, the whole thing about, like, there are ways that you can talk to different audience without in a different manner, without being duplicitous, without being a hypocrite. So for example, yeah, like even on the whole political speech thing, yeah, sometimes you do need to say things in a pithy way because you're trying to roll up the emotion of a crowd, and so and that doesn't, as long as it doesn't fundamentally contradict the more complicated position, then I don't see that as duplicitous. But with him, he will talk with in academia and say, yes, you know, I have to accept that the hadith are not credible. But then go and basically trash the academic method when he's talking to Muslims and say, well, it doesn't matter. No, it does, especially when you're saying it's a perfectly legitimate tool for every other religion. Then you are in blatant hypocrisy there,
Yeah,
because
that's a good
either
point.
this
Yeah.
tool works or it doesn't. It doesn't just work when you want it to. And this is what he did right from the start, when it's just like, we love it for the Bible. We would agree with it for the Bible. But as soon as it comes to the Quran, then, you know, we're going to have to just turn it all on its head. And I just think that's ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, aside from that, I pretty much, yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you say. I had good fun doing this one tonight, and maybe it was having a week off as well, but it was really enjoyable because um, yeah, he is held up as this more sophisticated face of Islam, and it just shows he's got nothing else. Fundamentally, he's no different than Mohammed Hijab in the strength of his arguments, and it was nice to go through and deconstruct that. And we've had a nice active comment section tonight, which has been really good as well. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it. So I think we'll wrap up there, since we've done a longer one tonight. We've gone over an hour and 40 minutes. So yeah,
Yeah,
will
a
be.
lot of material today.
Yeah, it was. And also just a reminder, you know, Mohammed Hijab and his wonderful court case and everything. I should have a video up going through some of the juicy bits of the court document on my other channel tomorrow. And depending on when you hear this, I'll have a link in the description of this video once I've done it. Probably be up about 8 p.m. UK tomorrow, UK time. So yeah, no, this has been fun. Thanks, Stops. Really enjoyed this one. Thank you to everyone in the comment section. You've been really good. You've done some really funny comments, which has also helped tonight. I've had a good laugh at a lot of the stuff that you've been saying. And we will be back again next week, same time, Friday, 8 p.m. ish. We'll try and get on time next time. Sorry, we're a little bit late again. Yeah, so until then, everybody have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you in the next live stream.